Lacey, to get us started, give me two truths and a lie, please.
George, it's so great to be with you today. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Okay, my two truths and a lie are that I used to live in the Bahamas.
Hmm.
I am a triathlete and I speak six languages.
Wow. All very believable. You seem like an extremely well-educated and intelligent person. So speaking six languages would be impressive, but not beyond the realm of possibilities. You lived in the Bahamas, okay, and you are a triathlete. Incredible. These are good. I bet you speak multiple languages, but not six.
You're right. You got it.
Do you speak more than one language?
I mean, I speak Spanish and I try, not even passable these days, but a little bit of Italian and a few other things. But yes, not six languages and certainly not fluently.
All right, all right. Well, tell me about the Bahamas.
I know I lived in the Bahamas. A stint, I actually moved to the Bahamas. It was fun. I had a 2 month old. I moved to the Bahamas, lived there for 3 years. It was wonderful. I was still working full time. Everyone asks about, how amazing it was just to be hanging out in paradise. And, the Bahamas is one of the leading international financial centers. So even though you can be there, you could also be very connected to the rest of the world and still be very connected in the financial world as well. But it was certainly an amazing experience, and it's a wonderful place.
That's awesome. Was
Yeah.
that your first child or?
That was my first and first and only actually. So
Well, that's brave
yeah.
to
Yeah.
to move to a new place and
Yes.
I'm sure it's very similar to the United States, but still not.
Similar and definitely not. All at the same time. Yes.
Yeah, well, that is a good adventure. And
Yeah.
triathletes, triathlons.
Yes. I know it's a little bit, maybe I used to be a triathlete. I'm not, I'm now not doing as many as I used to, but I was an athlete through college, played lacrosse, and then afterwards I needed to keep something to keep me in shape and keep me focused and keep some of that energy going. So, yeah, so for a while I was doing more of them than I am these days. These days I'm more of a on the sidelines of my now 11-year-old son who's a very athletic. But it's fun though. It's fun. We're actually training together. The two of us are training for him to do his first sprint, so it'll be a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And does he play lacrosse too?
He does. Yeah, amongst soccer and ski racing and tennis and a whole bunch of others, but yeah.
Nice. So that
Yeah.
you played lacrosse at a high level, what does that say about you?
I like early mornings. I like to work hard. No, but I don't know about you, George, but I think that, from a young age, sort of for me, being able to, all the benefits of being athletic, right? And being disciplined and kind of learning how to get up early in the morning, learning to work hard, learning to work as part of a team, those things were sort of ingrained in me at a young age. And I was very fortunate to get to play a multitude of sports and, at a competitive and kind of a high level. And then for the rest of my life to continue to do a lot of things more for fun, right, than anything seriously competitive. But I feel very fortunate because those things have been lifelong, they've honed kind of lifelong lessons, skills that have served me well in my business life and other interpersonal relationships as well.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I've got kids as well, and I try to be thoughtful of the path that I chose. It's
Yeah.
not the correct path, and
100%.
but certainly I echo everything that you said about the important role that athletics has
Yeah.
played in my life. And I wonder if I would have had the same experience if I had been into music or art. I just don't know.
No, and it's interesting that you say that because I agree too, because I was a little bit into music, but not as much. And I certainly am encouraging my son sort of going more down the path of just athletics. And I'm like trying to open his mindset to that because it is so important. And thankfully he's at a school where that's integrated into the curriculum. But I do believe that when you've got a passion right? I think there's similar, obviously similar benefits, like, that you know, people who are, passionate and really into arts or music are focused on practicing, are focused on, having to perform, and then sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't go well, right? Like a lot of those lessons that are inherent there, I think probably, obviously with the athletics, one nice thing about it is it makes you sweat, right?
Hmm.
Forces you to get your body moving, which we know is so healthy. But I also think it's something I'm super mindful of with my son, because I know at a young age I certainly forced him into playing lacrosse. I definitely was pushing him out on that field. And then when he got old enough to, for it to be his own, he came to me and he was like, mommy, I'm not so sure about lacrosse. Like, I don't know. I don't know if it's my sport. I think I might quit. What do you think? And I was like, you should quit. I was like, if it's not your thing, it's not your thing. And you've got so many other talents, so many other sports you love, so many other things you can do. And I actually fully expected him to quit, and I was totally okay with it. And then 3 months later, he's like, this is my favorite sport. So, but I think he had that freedom for it to become his.
So you let him move back in the house when he came back around?
It
I
probably
hope you
seems that
enjoy
way.
your new family,
I
son.
know, I no, and I seriously joke. I honestly would be just as happy if he was like folk. I mean, I also, by the way, I know this is not what this conversation's about, but I'm a big believer in children not specializing, right? Playing lots of different sports, focus on health and overall like athleticism, it being fun. Like I do not recommend specializing, and I'm still with my son at 11. He's kind of moving more towards that, but we're not doing it. We're not doing it for a couple more years. So I think that, yeah, no, I would have been happy for him to to have taken another path, despite what it probably feels like on the other end.
Yeah, I think that that's great. Find that just right, Lacey, between not being interested in anything at all, being too interested in one
Yeah.
thing, just
So,
right. So awesome. Well, thank you for playing along with me. I appreciate it. What is top of mind for you right now?
well, I'm excited to be here with you today, obviously, to talk about how, talk about empowering, really everybody. But with Willow, we focus a little bit more on women, millennial and Gen Z investors, just because historically they have been underserved by the market and what's going on with this great wealth transfer. And also how, I have to give a shout out to the fact that more and more women are starting businesses and creating wealth, and if not the lead breadwinner. And then as we look at these younger generations, like Gen Z even is already investing 70%, I think 77% of the latest study of Gen Z is already starting to invest and take ownership for their finances.
Wow.
So it's super exciting, right? That this, I feel like I grew up in a generation with a lot of stigma and shame and fear and like a lot of things holding women back, and maybe I'm a Cuban American, members of underrepresented groups, a lot of sort of holding folks back when it came to sort of really taking control of their personal finances. So that's what we're really all about at Willow. So I'm excited to be here. Obviously I love what you're doing with the Align Money podcast and all the work that you're doing. So, we think money is emotional or we know money is emotional, and that, coaching, making sure that you have the right trusted advisors. I believe that every individual kind of deserves and needs an advisor or a coach, or who can actually provide them with specialized advice and support and kind of care for their unique situation. But also being aligned with other folks who are out there kind of empowering, coaching, teaching, making sure that advisors and firms are providing that real holistic, fiduciary and trusted counsel, coaching, advice to clients, and how we make sure that people can get up, that they know that they deserve it and how they can get a hold of it. Right.
All extremely valuable things. It's really interesting. I'll be 47 this month, and that just means that there are several generations on both sides of me now, right? Because I'm about halfway through.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
you
Good
talking
old
about,
sandwich generation.
you know, these millennials that we heard about forever. Now it's Gen Z, and that Gen Z, that 70% or whatever the exact number was, are investing is extraordinary.
Mhm.
And how far we've come from the two generations before me to now, and making those advancements as everybody, but certainly the perception that the ability and perception that women can be the breadwinner. They could do whatever
Yeah,
they want. They can be investors, they could be entrepreneurs, they could be CEOs, they could be president, whatever.
totally.
It's an extraordinary thing.
Yeah.
There's a question in there somewhere, but not really. That was just a comment.
No, I
So
think it's great. No, by the way, and I think it's great. And that's, real that it is everybody, right? I mean, obviously we're focused on women, but we are certainly not, we work with as many men as we work with women, and, folks of all genders. And I mean, I do, and I also want to just say there's a shout out to both men and to women, quite frankly, that, being a stay-at-home parent is also, we know actually the latest math on that is that they should be earning at least like 175 or 180,000 a base for the work they're doing there. So in no way, shape, or form is that not, also completely worthwhile career path, right? And it should be looked at as a career path. But I think it is really important, yes, that I do. One thing I will say is, it's intuitive for men, I think, to just kind of be raised thinking and understanding that they're going to be responsible. They're providers, right? They have to be providers. They have to like earn money, they have to pay their bills, they have to do all that. But for women, I think that a lot of times still, they aren't being necessarily raised or kind of understanding that they need to be in control of their own finances, right? And that will give them power and freedom, that was going to serve them to be able to be in control of their lives and not end up in a position where they lack the ability to make decisions or leave a relationship that's not serving them well. So I think it is a really important message for that audience because it just hasn't been inherent in previous generations.
yeah. Well, one of the taglines for the show is that there's never going to be anybody more interested in your financial success than you are.
Totally.
So accepting that responsibility and ownership, once you do that, you will have that locus of control and you will
Yeah.
have the know-how. I've got this idea that I've been kind of kicking around of people that go to the circus and there's a tightrope
Yeah.
walker and they really believe that the tightrope walker is going to get from one side to the next, but then the
Yeah.
tightrope walker says, "Is anybody going to jump on my back and do it with me?"
Yeah.
And there's not necessarily the faith that they have to actually jump on. But in a lot of ways, that's what a financial advisor is offering. Somebody is, you want to get from point A to point B. Am I the person? Are we a good fit for one another to help you get to where you want to go? And it strikes me that in a lot of ways, or some ways, or at least one way, that's what you're doing is helping match people to the appropriate advisor, help, support.
100%, right? Because I think just like if you have something's wrong with you medically, Google's doing a pretty, and Chat GPT are doing a pretty good job these days helping on the self-diagnose. But you really have to go to the doctor, right? You really have to go to the doctor to get that, correct diagnosis and the right treatment, right? If you're sick. And, we don't question that, but with our finances, whether it be we've just come into a big new inheritance or all of a sudden we're making more money than we expected and we want to be more tax efficient around it, or we want to go and invest in more things or do whatever, or, a lot of folks are making, like the Henrys, you're earning a lot of money, but you're not rich yet, right? And trying to figure out how to make ends meet with all these demands, like all these different things. Like it is the reason there's an industry and there are people trained and they're on different planning techniques and vehicles and products and all that is because you aren't supposed to do it alone. Unless that is your day job, like it is not supposed to be that you're supposed to have all the answers, right? And you should be able to tap into that trusted advisor or trusted advisors who can help you, once they understand your goals, once they understand, what exactly you have to work with. So I think that in what you're trying to achieve, and it's really critically important. And I know that some people sort of grow up with that and like get it, and then there's so many though. Like we're talking about at least $16 trillion like unmanaged right now, where folks just don't think like, oh, well, an advisor isn't for me. They don't work with people like me, or they're going to charge too much, or this or that, and all those things, right? So it's trying to help to kind of demystify that because those folks who aren't getting that, you know, financial guidance, that trusted, fiduciary and licensed guidance, we want to make sure that they're going to get the best advice and really going to be able to grow their wealth and be stable and be secure and, live out their dreams in real life. And that's never a guarantee, but it certainly is harder to achieve without that trusted advisor.
Yeah, well, it certainly makes sense. And I've been at this for a good amount of time, and it's still not totally clear all the
Yeah.
different kinds of financial people that are running around out there, and change is constantly happening. And now we've got AI, and there's going to be AI advisors if there aren't already, and da 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 da. Da. So, what are the criteria that how did you go about? Maybe give a quick just snapshot
Yeah.
of how Willow works and what the important criteria are that you've decided to focus on or make choices available, kind of a
Yeah.
thing.
No, and as I said, we're specific for women. So we develop these two certificate training coaching programs and vetting programs for financial advisors. And we have the advisor for women program and then the advisor for next gen, which effectively is millennial or Gen Z today. And so what we do, the criteria we look for is we're only working with advisors who are in good standing with the SEC or FINRA. They have to complete, we're not a designation. We work in partnership with designations like the CFP, the CDFA. We're an accredited CE provider, but we're not adding another designation. We are sort of augmenting and supporting and collaborating with those. But we do have trainings and that advisors must go through and must pass, on integrating coaching in your practice, really understanding and working with women clients, or understanding and working with millennial, Gen Z, different groups of, more diverse investor bases. So that we also coach them one-on-one. We really get to know them. We are vetting them ourselves, and we are also taking a reference from a peer advisor or somebody in the industry who's not at their firm, so someone who's not incentivized for them to win new business and isn't getting paid out of that, and then also a client who's been working with them. So we're really doing that due diligence, and we're making sure, sort of at Willow, what we stand for is we believe that advisors should lead with empathy and use education to empower, right? So we call it the three E's: empathy, education, empowerment. They should be integrating coaching, the best practices of coaching, because we know that so many of both women and younger investors, two-thirds, are really looking for somebody who can also kind of help to act as a behavioral coach, help to act as a guide on that front, help them to be more accountable and not make as many mistakes, and really kind of work with them in that more collaborative partnership relationship. So those are really, where we're focused. And like I said, our trustwillow.com, our website for anybody who wants to come to it and fill out our survey, our matching questionnaire. Really, anybody can do it. We focus on women, we focus on younger investors, but we don't preclude, if older men want to come to us and understand. We occasionally have people reach out and be like, "I'm not sure these are the right investor advisors for me." And we're like, "Yes, that is the case." But we still have great advisors who will work with lots of different clients. But the focus here is making sure that those investors, for the most part, who felt underserved previously, who are the ones who are the most, who are not working with advisors, or who are like, we hear these high statistics about 70% of women who are getting divorced and newly widowed are looking to change advisors. As many as 80% of that next gen who's inheriting the wealth, they don't have a relationship, and they're, unless they feel like they have a relationship with their parents' advisor, they're not going to stick around. And so that's really who we're catering to. But like I said, free service for individuals. And then we work, very selectively to make sure that we are aligned, values aligned, and we've done really thorough due diligence and kind of vetting to make sure that we can recommend the best fit financial advisors along those lines.
Which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
The Well, the traditional model of a financial
Yeah.
advisor is you go and sit in this person's office and they are sort of doing everything, and then you
Yeah.
show up and they're sort of giving you updates on what it is that they're doing
Yeah.
versus this coaching, more collaborative conversation partner relationship. Are you seeing that that's where these folks that you're serving are wanting, or they just want the option kind of a thing?
Yeah, the people who are coming to us are looking for that, right? And I think that there's a paradigm shift in wealth management in general where we're seeing from like a macro trend and also like relevant statistically speaking on all these surveys and reports and everything that, I'm not going to quote anybody specifically, but that more and more women and more millennial and Gen Z investors are looking for this more holistic planning, coaching relationship when it comes to their advisor. And it's in this world of kind of AI, and more. Yes, it's not that we don't want things to be really tech savvy, and isn't that we don't want to be checking things seamlessly. But if we want a real person, we want a real person who's super personalized with us, right? And I think that in that sense too, the role of the financial advisor as a person who is connecting and who's a trusted advisor has actually never been more important. And using technology to kind of scale that, like from an efficiency and from a seamless integration and communication with your clients. But certainly that personalized relationship is what we're seeing, is really important. And since COVID, I mean, I think as many as we were like pre-COVID, less than 50% of millennials wanted to work with financial advisor. Now, like 80% of millennials do want to work with a financial advisor. People were looking to go just robo before, kind of like, actually, I want a real person, right? I do want a real person that I trust, and like I want to have a relationship with that person. Is this somebody that I, feel that I have things in common with? I feel like can let my guard down with them. I feel like they get me and that they like have similar values to me. All those things have become more important.
All things being equal, why wouldn't I want that? If I'm
Yeah.
getting the same good advice and the same good expertise, why wouldn't I want somebody who's empathetic?
Yeah. And I mean, and I don't, and I say this like, the 15 to 20% of folks out there who are institutional investors, like who think, act, eat, breathe the way the industry was historically built, like, no, they're not necessarily looking for that, right? But that's not the vast majority of retail clients, right? Who are have advanced degrees and very successful careers, but they're not living, eating, breathing the financial world on a day-to-day basis. Like this is, much more emotional, much more about life changes and events and like navigating those, with financial strength, like with security, right? Making sure that they're, protected, in case of anything happening, and that they're growing, their assets like in the most tax efficient way. But it's around all these different, like, it's not just about like performance, right? Spreadsheets performance. It's about like, here are my goals right now. Like, I want to, send my kids to college. I want to buy that second home. I want to do XYZ, whatever it is that you're trying to navigate. It's much more built around those life events and transitions. It's much more emotional.
The really important stuff, for
Yeah.
goodness sakes. I
Yeah.
like it. Well, Lacey, you've given us a lot, but we're ready for that difference-making tip. What do you have for
Yes.
us?
So I got a little one here. It doesn't sound very wow, but I have to say that if you want to save yourself a couple bucks, if you haven't gone through all your credit card statements, do it, right? Because I just did it last week and I was like, I didn't even realize all the new things that I had inadvertently signed up for, because I think that these days you're just clicking on something and you're automatically getting signed up. But I think that that's the quickest, easiest like financial tip I can give somebody, is that just check that statement, because I'm sure there's at least two or three subscriptions that you didn't even know that you're paying for, and you could save yourself a couple, potentially a couple hundred to a couple $1,000 just by doing that.
Well, I think that is great stuff. That definitely gets it. Come on. Truer words never been spoken. I remember the first time I did that exercise. It's been a long time now. I found hundreds of dollars, and every time I do it, there's something. I'm like, oh, why am I paying twice for one thing, or I haven't used that in several years. Why am I still paying for it? So
I don't know. I found that recently I am paying multiple times for these multiple for all the different streaming services. I'm like,
great.
how is it? That's my thing too. It's like, how is it that I have not just one, but two accounts? So that's where I'm just recommending. You might not even realize it that it somehow, you log in again, you just click, you're tired, whatever. All of a sudden you're paying for a double.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Lacy, we're not made out of money. Let's make sure that we're not having it fall right through our fingers. Thank you
Totally.
so much for coming on. Where can people learn more about you? How can they engage with you? And Willow.
Yes. Come to trustwillow.com. And definitely feel free to reach out to me. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, but come to trustwillow.com and you can if you're an individual and you can go through our matching survey. If you're an advisor, you can connect with us. But looking forward, please be in touch and delighted to have had this opportunity to speak with you, George, and your audience. I love what you're doing and grateful to have a chance to be a part of it today.
Well, it's been lovely speaking with you as well. So go to trustwillow.com and take it's a questionnaire.
It says get matched. Yeah, it's like consumer get matched with an advisor. Yeah. And by the way, you get three options. You go through and you'll be given three prospective advisors. You can rematch if they don't feel like the right fit. You're not obligated to do anything, but so it's not like you're instantly ending up on someone's calendar. People are instantly spamming you. I'll just say that.
Got it. I like it.
Yeah.
We'll go to trustwillow.com, check out everything that Lacey's been talking about, what she's built and is working on. Go through and get matched with those three advisors. And if it works, that's great. If it doesn't, then find three more. So
Exactly.
trustwillow.com. Thanks again, Lacey.
George, it was great. Thank you so
Finally.
much.
Yeah. Finally, friendly reminder, there's never going to be anybody more interested in your financial success than you are. So act accordingly.